President Trump's obsession with the 2020 election he lost is now apparently the focus of the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. She appeared at the site of an FBI search of an elections facility in Fulton County, Georgia, this week. Agents seized materials related to the 2020 election. The search itself raised alarms for elections officials around the country, coming on the heels of Attorney General Pam Bondi's demand for voter rolls from Minnesota. The Trump administration has requested voter data from nearly every state and sued more than 20 of them for refusing to provide that data. On Friday, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche defended the search and Gabbard's presence in Georgia.
It should be no surprise to anybody in this room that, or anybody watching, that election integrity is extraordinarily important to this administration, always has been and always will be. She doesn't work for the Department of Justice or the FBI. She's an extraordinarily important part of this administration. This administration coordinates everything we do as a group. And so I think her presence shouldn't be, there shouldn't be questioned. Of course, I mean, that's a big part of her job.
We're joined now by Maine Secretary of State Shenna Bellows. Secretary, thanks for joining us on set this morning. We appreciate it. You are in town because you attended the National Association of Secretaries of State conference. I imagine you have some Republican friends who also attended. What are they saying behind closed doors that they're not saying publicly about this administration's obsession with relitigating the election that Donald Trump lost?
Behind closed doors, they agree with us. This is bullshit. And for Gabbard to be on site handling ballots, remember, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, it's a domestic spy agency. Spies have no place in election administration in a democracy. And Trump's like the old boyfriend you can't get rid of, right? The country broke up with him in 2020. He can't get over with it. And his minions need to kiss the ring and
what do you think the real reason is, though, that they won't come out and say anything against him? I mean, is it that they don't want to be targeted? Is it that they think they're going to lose a subsequent election?
For Republicans to speak out against Trump is electoral suicide. So they're afraid of losing their next election. That would be the end of their political career. But they know that what Gabbard and Bondi and Noem are doing is wrong. It's unconstitutional. The Constitution puts the states, not the federal government, in charge of our elections. If Biden were doing this, they'd be calling for his head. Can you imagine?
Yes. Are your Republican colleagues, in addition to fear of electoral suicide, are they worried about their own physical safety as a result of going against the president, if they were to do so?
I think a lot of us are. I mean, I've been doxxed, swatted, threatened. Just last week, I was doxxed again. And, we take real risks in standing up to this administration and speaking out. And certainly, I was saying to my Republican colleagues, please, the Democratic states, stand up for us. And they say, we're being targeted, too.
Yeah. You were at, as Jackie mentioned, the National Association of Secretaries of State. You guys were all here meeting. A couple days ago, I'd heard that Tulsi Gabbard, Kristi Noem, and Pam Bondi had kind of bogarted themselves apparently onto your agenda, like where they were not apparently supposed to be there at one point. Let's show the photo, because eventually they just abruptly canceled. We do not know why. All of a sudden they canceled. We do have a photo from MS Now reporter Julia Jester that I'd like to show that shows the empty chairs on stage. They had already set up for them to get on stage. One, why do you think the DNI, the DHS Secretary, and the Attorney General are trying to talk to Secretaries of State? And two, do you have any idea why it was canceled so abruptly?
Well, these three, they play cowboys on TV and TikTok and Twitter, right? They pretend to be tough, and maybe trying to get on our agenda was a move to intimidate us. Mm-hmm. But like most bullies, they're cowards. Mm-hmm. I think they got scared. And you know what I would ask them? I would ask Noem to resign because she's murdered 2 American citizens. They've inflicted violence and chaos in the streets of Maine. I would have asked Bondi to butt out of our federal elections. I've got a petition on my website, bellowsformaine.com, calling for her to stop interfering with state elections. And Gabbard needs to also get out of elections because, again, spies have no place in our democracy.
Why do you think they want your voter rolls? Your election information?
Well, it's clear. It's much like what ICE is trying to do with assembling huge amounts of data on Americans to conduct surveillance, to scare people. Because of the Department of Justice, which has the power to investigate, prosecute, put people in jail, knows who's a Democrat, who's a Republican, that might have a chilling effect. People might be afraid to register as Democrats or to attend a primary. And the federal government has a terrible record keeping data safe. It's a huge violation of privacy. But most importantly, they want to interfere in the 2026 election. They're afraid of accountability by the voters.
And that's the question, right? Is because as Jackie was reading, Trump is obsessed with 2020, but it also appears that they are obsessed with 2026 and 2028. So some of these actions can be and are about 2020 and him trying to relitigate and cosplay like he was harmed in some way in 2020. But also about letting them know what they could do and giving them the weapons to do something in 2026 and 2028.
Well, at this conference, we're suddenly talking about how do we safeguard ballots and equipment from federal interference, from a federal raid.
Which is new, I assume.
Which is new.
Yeah.
We're talking about the prospect of masked, armed thugs, federal agents roaming the streets and how that might intimidate voters. And, 2026 is going to be a warm-up for 2028. They're afraid they're going to lose. It's one of the reasons I'm running for governor is we need strong leaders in the states who will stand up for state sovereignty.
Actually, can we quickly play a soundbite from Senator Mark Warner over the concerns that are percolating about sending ICE to polling locations? We'll get your response on the other side.
One of the reasons why we have to make sure that we get some guardrails on ICE, and this is not going far afield, is what I fear beyond the potential for Trump to try to interfere in a major way in our elections is one of the biggest ways he could interfere is by having these roving ICE bands show up at polling stations, and not just in the fall at primary polling stations. We in Virginia may try to change our maps to deal with redistricting. They show up there. That would chase away lots of potential voters.
There's really so many different ways that the administration could use these voter rolls. What are the ways that you're most worried about, and what is the status of handing over voter rolls to the government in Maine?
So when DOJ asked for the voter rolls, I said, go jump in the Gulf of Maine. They sued us, and they've sued 24 states. We're standing strong, and it's not just blue states, it's red states like New Hampshire.
Right.
And we've won 2 of those cases in California and Oregon, and we'll keep fighting. We have to do everything in our power to fight back, and we will, to protect our elections.
Secretary, well, I guess you all have been here is when we saw the DNI in Fulton County, Georgia, where we also saw them take the ballots and then having the election officials say, one, not only is this concerning, but 2, we have no idea where the ballots are. As a Secretary of State, if that had happened in a county in Maine, tell people what your concerns would be for those ballots. What could possibly happen?
So we have well-constructed chain of custody protections over ballots. No one person is ever with the ballots by themselves. We have officials from both political parties counting ballots. They're safeguarded behind lock and key in every municipality in Maine. And so to see the complete disruption of the chain of custody, to see Tulsi Gabbard, who has no role in elections, handling ballots, taking them out of a box, that suddenly disrupts the chain of custody, and no one can trust what the federal government is going to do with those ballots.
It's important, and we always like to remind our viewers that at the end of the day, we don't have one federal election. We have many different elections because people like you are actually in charge of administering the elections. That's in the Constitution.
Yeah, we used to say that was our election system was chaotic, and now I'm like, thank God for that chaos. That might be the saving grace. Maine Secretary of State Shannon Bellows, thank you very much for coming to the weekend and being here on set.
My pleasure.